And so for all of us, the question that we ask every single day is this task, is this relationship, is this, you fill in the blank, is this thing for you worth investing your time into? And one of the things at Journey Church that we love to invest time in are people and God. Because I believe those are the only two things, the Bible teaches, those are the only two things that will last forever. It's God and people. And conveniently, we say around here all the time that we're leading people to follow Jesus. And we've lumped both of those things into this one statement about who we are. We're leading people because people matter and people are going to live forever in eternity, either in heaven or in a real place called hell. We're leading people to follow Jesus because at the end of the day, that's all that truly, really, honestly matters. And so you and I have a amount of time that God has given us. And the question to us becomes, and the thing that we want to answer today is, what are we doing with that time? One of the things that I like so much about our church is we're passionate. You can go ahead and put this up there. We're okay with people's first interaction with Journey Church and possibly Jesus being on their turf and on their terms rather than ours. That's one of the reasons we do so much in the city. That's why we volunteer for Trunk or Treat and why we do Easter egg hunts and why we, go do kids clubs, one Saturday every single month, and then we do a week of kids clubs in the summer. That's why we do Trunk or Treat and party in the park, and that's why we go to McAllister's on Free Tea Day and we host at McAllister's on Free, because I want people's first interaction with us as Christ followers to be in their environment. Because can I just tell you, you don't have to be a wacko nut job to follow Jesus. Just take that, that presupposition off of you. Because I grew up knowing some crazy Christians, right? Like they would stand behind the corner with their little black Bible, and they would wait for you to walk by, and they would like jump out and scare you and like pop you on the forehead, And I grew up kind of thinking, well, if I'm going to follow Jesus, I have to learn how to, bust people on the forehead with the Bible. Well, that's not really what Jesus calls us to do when we follow him. And so, real quickly, the last two things. At Journey Church, when we invest in Jesus and we invest in people, we like to create environments where everyone belongs, and we like to build relationships because everyone matters. Do you see a theme here? People matter. People matter to God, and they matter to us, and they should matter to you and to me. And so the question that we're going to ask today, and the question that we're going to answer is, you have a finite amount of time. Where are you investing? What are you doing with that time? When I was putting this talk together, I was reminded of a story that I heard in business law when I was at Delta State. Any Fighting Ochre fans? No Fighting Ochres. I ask that like at least once a month, and one day God's going to send us a Fighting Ochre. I just know it. So I'm sitting in a business law class at Delta State, and the professor goes to tell us the story about this preschool teacher, kindergarten teacher, who was asking her class, this is a true story, ask her class, where does money come from? And all the kids are giving the pat answer that you think kids would give. It comes from trees, it comes from mommy and daddy's wallet, it comes from this, it comes from that, and the teacher's just going down the list. Well, then this one kid raises his hand and it says, it comes from the trunk of the car. And the kindergarten teacher thought, whatever, just kind of blew it off and went on. Well, she kept thinking about it over the next couple of days, like, why would this kid say money comes from the trunk of the car? So just offhanded, she mentions it to her husband, who was a Mississippi Highway patrolman. And he thought it was an intriguing answer. And so they started following this kid's parents around, and they discovered that they had a small printing press with a couple of plates in the trunk of their car. They would pull into the parking lot at Walmart, and they would crank out a couple of $10 bills, and they would go inside, and they would spend them. So money was literally coming from the trunk of the car. They got busted because of a 5-year-old. Their unlimited supply of resources quickly came crashing down. Be careful, little eyes, what you see, right? So their unlimited supply came crashing down, and it had found its limits. And our lives are a lot the same way. Our supply of time, our supply of resources will eventually run out. Kind of like the tagline of a famous TV show. I had a roommate at Delta State that taped every single day. Like sands through the hourglass. These are the days of our lives. Our days are just fleeting. This dude, I'm telling you, he taped them and he watched it religiously every night. It was the craziest thing. And I knew more about those characters of Days of Our Lives in college than I ever care to know for the rest of the entirety of my life. But that's the moment I want us to talk about, I want us to think about, and I want us to focus on today. When you get to your last moment, when you're laying there on your deathbed, what is going to be the thing that you wish you did? What's going to be the thing that you wish you didn't do? Where are the people that you're going to want to have invested time in? Because rarely do you get to those moments with people. And rarely do people sit on their deathbed and think, man, I wish I would have invested more time in my job. I wish I'd have gone in an hour early every week. Rarely do they say, I wish I would have invested more in my hobby, more in my, you fill in the blank. It's always, man, I wish I'd have spent more time with my kids. Man, I wish I could just tell my wife one more time how much I love her. And so questions of priorities come up when we get in those final moments and when we kind of drill down and we begin to think about where we're investing our limited amount of time. Ephesians chapter 5, if you have your Bible or your phone or you're going to look on with your neighbor, we're going to put it up here on the screen in just a minute, but that's where we're going to be. Ephesians chapter 5, because Paul writes to us and he explains kind of this whole concept of what are you going to do with the time that you have. So let me set up these chapters that lead into Ephesians chapter 5. In Ephesians 2, Paul writes to us, or chapter 2, he's talking about the purpose of our faith, and it's this. This is Ephesians 2, verse 4. It says, But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. So it is by grace that you have been saved. The purpose of following Jesus and the purpose of this whole thing, the purpose of Jesus coming was so that we could be saved. Saved from what? Saved from the stupid investments of time, talent, resources that we've made with our life. Okay? The Bible calls that sin. God says, I have this perfect way for you, and if you will just follow me, I'll show you the best steps to take. And a lot of us, myself chief among us, I think that I know best. And so we step off or we strike out and we go do our own thing, and God says, no, whoa, back up. That's not quite the direction that he wants us to go. So he continues in chapter 3, he talks about the practices of our faith, and he talks about how to walk spiritually and in purity and in unity. So in chapter 5 is what we're going to talk about today. Paul talks about how to walk like God. Paul tells us where God invests time. And we hear this phrase all the time. We use it. We use it in our statement. We follow people, lead people to follow Jesus. We talk about Jesus followers or Christ followers. And the word follower literally means to imitate. If we're somebody that follows Jesus, or we're a Christian, or we're a Christ follower, we're somebody that's an imitator of Christ. Now, we were all kids once. How many of you have ever heard the phrase, "Mom, she's copying me"? And it's always said just like that, right? I mean, it's never, "Dearest mother, this sibling yon mine is imitating what I," it's always that, "Mom, she's copying me." Because kids imitate what they see. It works out to the good, mom and dad. If you train them, if you show them the right things to do, they're going to do it because they learn by what they see more than what they hear. It also works out to the negative. If you teach them something that they shouldn't see or say, I told you the story about Dylan breaking out of his room when he was in timeout. One day, McKenna locked herself in the bathroom, and so I got a toothpick and I stuck it in the hole in the lock in the door so I could get in. Well, Dylan got in trouble, and he had locked himself in his room. But he had locked himself in his room with me in there and McKenna and Braden on the outside. And I'm inside his room just panicking, like, how did we get in this situation? Like, I didn't know this was even possible. And so I'm just in the room panicking. Stacy's gone. And all of a sudden, Dylan says, "Hey, don't worry about it, Dad. I got the magic key." It's like, what is he talking about? Well, he goes over in his sock drawer, and he can't even see it. He reaches over in his sock. He pulls out a Lego smokestack for a garbage truck. And he goes, "Watch. And he walks over, and he did exactly what I had done like 2 weeks earlier. He jams that Lego in the door, and he turns it, and the door pops open, and I was like, what else is he watching me and learning how to do? Like, this is going to be a problem, okay? Because I got the really smart kid who hatches the plans, and then I got the really brave one who doesn't have any boundaries, and he's just executing all of this stuff he sees. And children copy, and so it's encouraging, or it can be embarrassing. How many of us have seen little boys who wanted to shave like their dad, or mow the grass like their dad, or they sit in the truck and they drive trucks like their dad? How many little girls want to dress like mom, or they want to cook like mom, or they want to be the boss like mom? Or that was a joke. Okay. It's in the heart of a child to want to act like their parents, but it can also work against you. So let me ask this question. If physically children act like their parents, then doesn't it stand to reason that it would be true that spiritually we should act like our Heavenly Father? That if our physical children act like us and they learn from watching us, shouldn't it be true that us as children of God, we should act like our spiritual Father, our Heavenly Father? And so we're gonna look at a couple of things here in Ephesians chapter 5, and I'm going to go ahead and outline them. I think he has them. There's 3 themes in this verse. Walk in love, walk in the light, and walk with purpose. Now, if you're an alliteration person and that's going to drive you crazy, I'm going to give you an alternate. You can say walk in line. Okay? But walk in love, walk in light, walk in purpose. Ephesians chapter 5, look right there. We're going to read a lot of this chapter together, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about a couple verses. You ready? We're going to put them all up here. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, it says, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. But among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or any kind of impurity or greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be any obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, or person such as an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient." Verse 7 says, "Therefore do not be partners with them." Okay, so he's talking about walking in love there in that part. The second part, he's talking about walking in light. Verse 8 says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. So live as children of the light. For the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth." All right, and then skip down to verse 15. And this is where he's talking about walking with purpose. Hey, awesome job, thank you. Verse 15 says, "Be very careful then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery, but instead be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks to the God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ." Okay, there's a whole lot of verses there, right? But he talks about how to walk in love, and he talks about how to walk in the light, because God is light, and we're to walk in the light of God, okay? Are you with me so far? I want to talk to you what Paul writes about how to walk with purpose. How to walk with a purpose. Go back to verse 15, or forward to verse 15, or however. Okay. He says this. He says, "Be careful then how you walk." Not as wise, but as unwise. How you walk. One translation says, go back. It says that you walk circumspectly. I like that word. It sounds like a disease. Like if you were to go to the doctor's office and you were sitting there on the stool and the doctor walks in and says, "Son, I'm sorry to tell you, you got the circumspectlies." Okay? You don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound good. All right? You're just hoping there's a cure. Be careful then how you walk, or that you walk circumspectly, that you walk with purpose, that you walk with precision, that your feet fall in a place with accuracy. Paul says, be careful that you do that, because the opposite of that is just walking the way that you and I want to go, doing what we think feels good, doing, just taking whatever opportunity comes our way. And God says, no, hang on. If you'll just be patient, I've got a plan for you. So he says, be careful that you walk circumspectly, not as the wise, but as the unwise. Now, we talk a lot about having a relationship with Jesus. And what are we talking about when we say we're walking with God, I'm following God? What does that mean? If you have a friend and you want a relationship with him, what do? You text them, you Facebook them, you go have coffee with them, you send them terrible, horrible, hateful memes on Facebook about how nasty they are as a friend. That's the things you do when you love somebody. And God says, I want you to walk with me. I want you to walk with purpose. I want you to walk with passion and with a reason for your steps. And he wants that relationship with you and with me. Our walk begins with God. And when we trust him, and as we continue to follow him, a byproduct of that will be that we lead people to follow him. Now, when we say we lead people to follow Jesus, and we talk all the time about discipleship or be in a journey group, or what does it mean? What does that mean? Those are just really kind of churchy words sometimes, aren't they? Discipleship, fellowship. Nobody uses the word fellowship but people in the church. So if you're ever talking to somebody and they say, hey, we're going to come over for some sweet fellowship, they're church people? Man, I'm struggling. Y'all going to have to work with me. But we use this word discipleship. What does that mean? Anybody know how to read a map? Not like Google Maps, not like maps on your phone, but like a paper map, okay? It's an acquired skill. It's not something you just open and look at it and go, okay, yeah, I can do that. Somebody taught me how to read a map. We were talking this week. My grandmother, we used to go to Gatlinburg on family vacation every year, and our directions were written on the back of an envelope that my grandmother wrote for my parents when they went on their honeymoon. And every year we got lost. It was the same trip, the same road, the same place. Every year we got lost. And I was like, could we not just... So then we got this map atlas book. And then it became an argument about, there's this town called Rising Fawn. I don't even know where it is. I don't even know what state it's in. But when we would get close, you're supposed to turn at Rising Fawn. No, you're supposed to go through Chattanooga. You're supposed to go around Chattanooga. And so there's just this fight. If we could have just learned how to read the map. Do you know that's what discipleship is? That's just learning to read the map. And if you know how to read the map, discipling someone else is teaching them how to read the map. If you have walked a journey with God for a day, you have walked a path far enough to turn around to tell somebody behind you, hey, there's a pitfall here. There's a pothole. There's a rock slide. There's a grenade. Don't go down that trail over there. It takes you somewhere you don't want to go. That's all discipleship is. It's learning from people who have walked with God far enough, long enough, that they can help you discern where those explosions, where those pitfalls, where those grenades are. So Paul says, walk circumspectly, walk with purpose, not as the wise, or not as unwise, but as the wise. Walk wisely, not as unwise people walk. Now, how do unwise people walk? They just go with the flow. They do whatever. And rarely does their life have a lasting, long-term impact. So Paul gives us the choice. We can walk circumspectly. We can walk with purpose as wise people do, or we can walk as someone who's unwise, and we get to the end of our life wishing that we would have had more impact, wishing that we could have done something more meaningful with our life. He says, walk with wisdom, make good decisions. That's hard. My mom used to tell us all the time before we leave the house, make godly choices. When I was in high school, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And now I find myself telling my kids that. I'm like, hey, look, don't do the stupid stuff that I did. Okay? Hey, look, let me tell you how to get 10 years further down the road in life when you graduate high school. Don't be an idiot. Walk with purpose. Walk as wise. Don't just let life happen to you. Walk with a plan. Say, God has given me this challenge. God has given me these kids to raise. God has given me this family. God has given me this job, this position. Whatever it is that God has given you, walk with those things with purpose. And be able to explain those kids, here's why mommy and daddy love Jesus. Not because we like giving up an hour of our Sunday morning on Sunday and going and sitting in the building with stained glass windows. Because that's not our favorite thing to do. We walk with Jesus because Jesus gives us purpose and he gives us direction that we cannot get anywhere else. Are you following me? Say yes. All right, walk with purpose. Make good decisions. They're often the most difficult decisions, but they're often the right ones. Imitate God, walk in love, and walk in the light, and walk in purpose. Listen to this. The way that you walk will determine the path that your children walk. Think about that for just a minute. That's heavy. But the way that you walk, mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, cousin, whatever, the way that you walk will determine the way that someone else walks. The way that you follow Jesus, the way that you deal with struggle, the way that you deal with difficulty, the way that you deal with the blessings that God gives you, and the way that you live life through those difficult times, those things will determine how someone else walks. Because somebody is watching you. And they know that you're a Christ follower, and they're looking to see, is your life any different than theirs? Because if my life is the same as their life and I have Jesus and they don't, then why would they follow him? I'm the best map to some people in my sphere of influence because they're not going to go home and read their Bible or listen to a sermon or come to church and worship on an hour on Sunday morning like you do. They're just watching you. So how are you walking? Are you walking in the light? Are you walking in love? Are you walking with purpose? How many of us said we hope our kids turn out better than we did? We hope they make more godly decisions than we did. We hope they don't fall down the side of the mountain into the ditch like we did. And that's exactly what Paul's talking about. It is our responsibility. I love listening to talk radio. Just because I have learned by listening to talk radio. I mean, these people, their blood pressure is like 1,000 points. So I've learned to be able to listen to it and just you know what? They think the world's coming to an end every 15 seconds. And so I have inoculated myself against the world coming to an end. And I had a point and that was going somewhere and it was great and I just totally lost it. Verse 16. I'll watch that this afternoon and be like, yeah, that's where I was going. We want our kids to make more godly decisions than we did. But we can't just pray. We can't just hope. We can't just say, hey, we hope they're better than we are. We have to show them how to walk that way. Verse 16, he says this. He says, redeeming the time. Make the most of every opportunity is the way some translations say it. Because the days are evil. I want to tackle that last part first. Because the days are evil. Everybody said, duh. Okay? I don't have to convince you that there are people out there that don't want the best for you. There are people that want you to fail, largely because they failed or they've not succeeded, and so they just want you to not succeed too so they don't feel so bad about themselves. Walk with purpose because the days are evil. There are people that don't want the best for you, but God wants the best for you, and he says, walk this way, and he says, redeem the time. Now, that's a phrase I probably read 100 times and never really understood what it meant until I went to Chuck E. Cheese as an adult. And then it hit me. How many Mouse fans in the house? Not M-I-C-K-E-Y, but Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. I can explain this verse to you by skee ball, air hockey, and little basketball hoops. You ready? What happens when you walk in Chuck E. Cheese besides you get hit in the face by that smell of cardboard pizza? You put a $10 bill in this little machine that gives you tokens. Already you've been ripped off. You put $10 in the machine that gives you tokens, and then you go take the tokens and you put them in a skee ball machine. And you pick up a little wooden ball that 4 million people have touched, sneezed on, slobbered on. They haven't been cleaned. I go in a place like that and I'm just paranoid. I'm just telling you, I'm not the friend to take Chuck E. Cheese. But you put your token in the skee ball machine and you pull the little wooden ball out and you slide it up the little thing and it goes in the hole and you get points. And when you get points, you get tickets. Yeah. You get a giant pile, this giant stack of tickets. And so you take that $10 and you turn it to tokens and you turn the tokens to tickets. And then you've got 4 million tickets and you take them to the counter at Chuck E. Cheese and you set them up on the glass counter and the little guy counts them. He puts them in the machine and he tells you, you have 4,000 tickets. Yes! What can I buy with 4,000 tickets? 2 spider rings and a pair of wax lips. You turn $10 into tokens, into tickets, and all you have to show for $10 are 2 spider rings and some wax lips. But what happens with the tickets? You have a certain amount of tickets. And you go up to the counter and you set them on the counter, and you are redeeming those tickets for a prize. You have 4,000 tickets. You have 4,000 days. You have 8,000 days. You have 12,000 days. You have 400 days. You may have 2 days. And what Paul says is, what are you redeeming those days for? You have a finite amount of time. However many days you have, that's how many days you have. And when you redeem something, you exchange it for something else. And Paul says to walk with purpose and to follow God and to lead other people to be able to read the map and to follow Him too, and redeem the time. Make the most of those opportunities that you have with your kids. Make the most of the opportunities that you have to spend time with your family. Make the most of the opportunity that you have when you're on the cereal aisle in Walmart and you want to punch somebody in the throat. Make the most of those opportunities, because people are watching you. And people are watching me. Not because I stand up here, not because I'm bald, but because they know that I follow Jesus and they want to see, is my life legit? And he says, redeem the time. Whatever time you have, make the most out of it. Don't get to the end of life and find out you got 2 spider rings and a pair of wax lips, because you're going to feel gypped. When I get to the end, I want the people that I care about to suffer. I want them to be sad that I'm not here, because I want to have invested in people. If you don't know Kelly, Faith and Kelly, our children's lady, and her husband, his dad passed away relatively unexpectedly. And so the funeral is today at 3. If you'll pray for them, we would appreciate it. But Kelly and I were joking the other night at the house before they left, and I told him, I said, so when I die, I hope it's in the summer. And I'm going to write in my funeral plan that I want everybody to wear turtlenecks and parkas to the graveside. And I want everybody to stand out there, and I want them to suffer. Why? Because I can. And because I'm mean. But Paul says you have the opportunity to write the end of your story. It's going to look like what you want it to look like. And when you look into your future, do you see the ending that you want to have? Are you walking with purpose? Are you redeeming the time? Are you exchanging your days, your moments, your seconds? Are you exchanging them for something that matters long term? Or are you exchanging them for something that feels good at the moment, but it's fleeting and it's going to pass and it's going to go away? Verse 17, he says, therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And then he lines it out there in the next 4 verses. And I can just sum it up, and he says, instead, be filled with the Spirit. You know what the Spirit is in your journey? It's that internal GPS that's never wrong. If you're following Jesus and you're following the map and you're walking with precision and you're walking with purpose and you're redeeming your time and you're making the most of your journey and you're explaining to other people how to follow Jesus and you're telling them where the pitfalls are, and he says, be filled with the Spirit. What does that mean? That means listen to the GPS that's on the inside of you, because when you trade your sin for Jesus coming in your heart, the Spirit comes and lives inside of you. Now, I don't know about you. I fight with my GPS all the time. The little lady will come on and say, you need to turn left in 400 feet. I'm like, yeah, bet me. All right? Yeah. And my favorite thing is, you will arrive in 17 minutes. Is that a challenge? I can beat that. Yeah, we'll whittle that down to 13 minutes. So just watch this. Hang on, Siri. But we fight with that GPS because we think we know better. And God puts His Spirit in us. And He says, be filled with the Spirit and listen to the Spirit. Because that Spirit, what God tells you in those quiet moments, and where God gently kind of prompts you and moves you, that's the direction He wants you to go. So walk with purpose, redeem your time, get things that are valuable, invest your time in valuable things, and that's with God and with people. And be filled with the Spirit. Listen to the Spirit. All right, practical steps to redeeming the time, then I'm going to be done. Number 1, and I think I wrote most of these on your notes there. Dedicate yourself to a daily walk with the Lord. If we're talking about being on a journey with God and we're talking about walking with purpose, how do we do that? Well, we have to spend time with the person that knows the course the best. And that's God. Hey, I'm excited that you are here. I'm glad that you come. I'm glad that you're engaged. I'm glad that you bring people with you. It's awesome what God has done here in under a year. I mean, it's incredible. But what happens in this 1 hour is not enough direction for you to make it from Sunday to Sunday. I mean, there has to be something else, and that's a daily walk with God. If it's sitting down and opening the Bible app on your phone, which is free, just look for Bible in the App Store. You can download it for free, and you can find a plan. Well, you can read 3 verses a day. Every day you'll wake up and have 3 verses. Okay, great. Okay, God, I'm going to read these verses. What do you want to say to me today? And I guarantee you that sometime in your day, something will happen, and God will bring those 3 verses back. Because you're putting something in, and then God's got something to bring out back to you. Dedicate yourself to a walk with Him. Number 2, stop rehearsing past hurts and failures. If you want to make the most out of every day, you cannot live looking in the rearview mirror. What's in the past is in the past. And there are some stupid stuff in my past. There are some stupid things that are on fire in my past. And sometimes it's fun to turn around and watch them burn. But you can't move forward while you're looking backwards. So if you're going to redeem the time, you're going to make the most out of your life, you cannot keep rehearsing the past. Number 3 is kind of like number 1, but it's this, it's trust the Lord. Man, we've got to trust that He knows more, He knows best for us than we know for ourselves. And the last one is this, reprioritize or check your priorities.